Welcome everyone to part 2 of getting to know Adobe Photoshop. Now that you know a little bit about the Adobe Photoshop interface, it's time to talk about some basic navigation skills. In this demonstration, we're going to open a file. We're going to talk about the Move tool, introduce you to the grabber hand, the Zoom tool, and the navigation panel, and explore how all of these kind of work together. So to get started, I'm going to open a file by going under File, New, and here I've got a lot of options. In this case, I'm going to keep this at screen resolution because this is in an online demonstration, so I'm going to keep it at 72 dpi, which is screen resolution. I'm going to set the color mode to RGB color since this will be for web delivery, and I'll just leave it at a 4x4 height. That's just fine. I can change that if I wanted to make it, more of a typical 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. That's a fairly typical starting point for image size. Or I can think of it more of photographs, like an 8 by 10 photograph or a 5 by 7 photograph. And this will be, again, at 72 dpi, so it's going to be a fairly small file. It's expected to be at 531K when we open this new file. With the background content set to white, that's fine. I'm going to click on OK. So here's my new file. Typically, you start out with the Move tool. The Move tool is set to move items here in your image window by clicking and dragging on the item. Let's show, for an example, let's say I had some text in a layer. Let's show my Layers tool. And so I have this basic text layer. Now, if I return to my Move tool, I can make sure that the basic text layer is active, and using the Move tool, I can move this item about here within my image window. So the Move tool moves items that are selected in the Layers panel. It can get a little confusing. If, for example, your background had been selected, which is locked, and you didn't have your Layers panel showing, and you click on this item, you'll get a little warning that says, could not complete your request because the layer is locked. You click OK and you go, let's take a look at my layers. Oh, I didn't have that text layer selected, which was making it difficult to move things around. So that's what your Move tool does. It moves items related to the selected layer in your Layers panel. If your Layers panel isn't showing, you can always go under Window and make sure that Layers is showing by clicking on the Window Layers option. The next thing that I want to show is the Navigator panel, which looks like this. Now the Navigator panel allows us to zoom in and out, and we can also, if we zoom in too far and we lose track of the item in the image window, I can use this little grabber hand in the Navigator panel and click and drag to bring that layer back into focus. So the Navigator panel is the one that's signified by either a compass or a steering wheel on a ship. That's your Navigator icon, and it can also be accessed here under Window and Navigator. It's related to the grabber hand in your Tools bar. See, the Hand tool is located here as well. If I click on the Hand tool, it moves the entire image window, but it doesn't actually move the layer. So the grabber hand, or the Hand tool, and the Navigator panel are closely related. In fact, you can use very similarly, you can use the Hand tool within the Navigator panel to bring elements of the image window into focus. And this can become very helpful to you as you're working on extremely complex composite images. And finally, I'm going to show you the relationship between the Zoom tool and the Zoom in the Navigator panel. The Zoom tool is also located here in your Tools panel. I can zoom in and out by clicking on the image window. I can change in my tool options bar. I can choose to zoom out and zoom in by clicking on the minus or the plus sign. Similarly, using my keyboard, if I hold down the Alt key, it changes my zoom tool to a minus, which also allows me to click. So the Alt key on the keyboard uses the alternate of what is selected on the tools options bar. So if I have the minus selected, I'm going to be zooming out unless I use the Alt key on my keyboard, which uses the alternative, and it changes it to the plus sign, but only momentarily. I'm just using the Alt key on my keyboard, and it's toggling between plus and minus. Typically for me, just because it's faster in my workflow, I keep the plus selected, and if I want to zoom out, I use the Alt key on my keyboard, and that tends to be my habit. And you can see how zooming in and out is related to zooming in and out on your navigator panel as well. And then you can move things back into focus. So sometimes it's easy to get a little bit lost, but using a combination of the hand tool, the zoom tool, and the navigator panel, you should be able to get things back into focus and where you want to be on the image window. And this concludes your intro demonstration to navigating through the Adobe Photoshop using your Move tool, which moves elements or selected layers on the image window, versus using the hand tool, which actually moves the image window around as it's related to the navigator panel, which also moves the entire image window around, as opposed to moving one element on the stage.